The conference room went dead silent as Director Howard Brennan unfolded my resignation letter. His confident smirk dissolved like sugar in hot coffee. Those hands that had been so steady when he announced Kevin's promotion now trembled against the crisp white paper. 7 years of carrying this department on my shoulders, 7 years of record-breaking numbers, and he thought I'd just smile and train the golden boy who couldn't even pass Business 101. Speaking of workplace karma and standing up for what you've earned, this story hits different. Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where corporate injustice meets its match. Every week, real people share how they turned the tables when their workplace tried to dim their shine. These aren't just reminders that loyalty goes both ways, and sometimes walking away is the biggest power move. Before diving in, if stories about professionals who know their worth resonate with you, hitting that subscribe button helps us build this community. We're climbing toward 8,000 subscribers, each one someone who believes that hard work deserves respect, not a slap in the face. Your subscription says you're part of that movement. My name is Evelyn Cross, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the senior sales executive at Brennan Solutions, a mid-sized tech firm in Chicago. My parents ran a small diner for 30 years, serving everyone from executives to students with the same warm smile. They taught me that success means nothing if you forget where you came from, and that empathy isn't weakness, it's strength. Those lessons shaped every decision I made in my career, including the one that turned Howard's world upside down. The morning started like any other Tuesday. Coffee brewing in the break room, keyboards clicking, phones ringing with that particular rhythm that meant deals were closing. I was reviewing the quarterly projections when Howard's assistant, Monica, appeared at my cubicle with that tight smile that screamed bad news incoming. Evelyn, Howard wants everyone in conference room B in 10 minutes. All hands. All hands meetings only happened for 2 reasons: celebrating major wins or announcing restructures. Given that we just closed the Anderson account, the biggest contract in company history, thanks to my team's 3-month hustle, celebration seemed likely. I grabbed my tablet and headed down the hall, nodding to teammates who looked equally curious. The conference room was packed. My entire sales team, 12 people who'd become more like family than colleagues over the years, filled the chairs around the long mahogany table. Howard stood at the head, wearing his expensive navy suit and that shark smile he reserved for board meetings. Beside him stood a kid who couldn't have been more than 22, wearing khakis that needed ironing and a dress shirt 2 sizes too big. "Thanks for gathering on short notice," Howard began, his voice booming with false enthusiasm. "I've got exciting news about the future of our sales division. As you all know, we're experiencing unprecedented growth. The Anderson deal that Evelyn and her team closed last month puts us at 300% over target for the year." Polite applause rippled through the room. I caught my colleague Jason's eye. He mouthed "bonus," and I shrugged. Maybe corporate finally recognized our value. "This growth means we need strong leadership to scale even higher," Howard continued. "Which is why I'm thrilled to announce a new position, Director of Sales Operations. This person will oversee strategy, mentor our existing executives, and spearhead our expansion into the West Coast markets." My spine straightened. Director of Sales Operations. That was the role I'd been angling for since my 3rd year. I'd submitted formal proposals, taken on extra projects, mentored new hires on my own time. Every performance review for the past 4 years had the same note: Evelyn demonstrates exceptional leadership potential. I'm pleased to introduce Kevin Brennan, who will be stepping into this vital role effective immediately. The room's energy shifted. Kevin, the kid in the wrinkled khakis, gave an awkward wave. Several team members glanced at me, confusion written across their faces. Jason's mouth fell open. "Kevin recently completed his studies in business management and brings fresh perspectives that will help us innovate," Howard said, clapping his nephew on the shoulder. The family resemblance was unmistakable. Same sharp nose, same thin lips, same way of looking at people like they were quarterly reports instead of humans. Completed his studies. That was corporate speak if I'd ever heard it. Monica had mentioned a few weeks back that Howard's nephew had dropped out of Northwestern after failing most of his junior year classes. The family had been in crisis mode, trying to figure out what to do with a kid who'd burned through a trust fund partying instead of studying. Kevin will shadow our senior team this week before fully transitioning into leadership. I expect everyone's full cooperation in bringing him up to speed. The meeting ended with more hollow applause. People filed out, whispering. I stayed seated, my tablet screen blurring as rage and disbelief warred in my chest. 7 years. 7 years of arriving early, staying late, sacrificing weekends and holidays. 7 years of exceeding every metric, closing impossible deals, building relationships that turned cold leads into loyal clients. 7 years of waiting for the recognition that apparently meant nothing when nepotism came knocking. Jason lingered by the door until the room cleared. Evelyn, that's insane. You've earned that position 10 times over. Apparently experience doesn't matter when you share DNA with the boss, I said, finally finding my voice. Are you going to talk to Howard? What's the point? The decision's made. I stood, smoothing my skirt, but I'm not sticking around to watch this train wreck. His eyes widened. You're quitting. I'm choosing myself for once. The decision crystallized as I said it. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. This was mine. I spent Tuesday afternoon at my desk, working with an eerie calm that comes when you've finally had enough. My team kept stopping by, each conversation a variation of the same theme. This isn't fair, this isn't right, what are you going to do? I deflected, smiled, and kept my plans close. By 5 o'clock, I had a draft resignation letter saved on my personal laptop. That evening, I sat in my apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, watching the sun paint the water gold and orange. My phone buzzed with texts from colleagues expressing outrage on my behalf. One from Angela, my top account manager. 7 years, Ev, 7, and he gives it to someone who's never closed a deal in his life. Another from Marcus in IT. Kevin asked me today what CRM stands for, Customer Relationship Management. The kid doesn't know basic acronyms. I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. The resignation letter needed work. It couldn't be emotional. That would give Howard ammunition to paint me as bitter or unstable. It needed to be professional, brief, and most importantly, it needed to make clear exactly what he was losing. Wednesday morning, I arrived at the office with 2 copies of my resignation letter, one for Howard, one for Human Resources. Both went into crisp white envelopes. I'd also prepared a detailed transition document outlining my active accounts, pending deals, and strategic initiatives. Professional to the end. Kevin was in my cubicle when I arrived, sitting in my chair, scrolling through my computer files. Excuse me, I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. He looked up, startled. Oh, hey, Uncle Howard said I should familiarize myself with ongoing projects. Your accounts are the biggest, so I figured I'd start here. That's my personal workspace. You need permission before accessing someone's files. He rolled his eyes, actually rolled his eyes, and stood up. Relax, we're all on the same team here. Uncle Howard says you're one of the best, so I'm trying to learn from you. Learn from me? The audacity made my teeth ache. Kevin, those accounts represent years of relationship building. They're not files you can skim through in an hour and understand. How hard can it be? You call people, pitch products, close deals. I've been watching YouTube videos about sales techniques all week. YouTube videos. This kid thought 7 years of expertise could be replaced with YouTube videos. I took a slow breath, reminding myself that in approximately 2 hours, Kevin and his uncle would no longer be my problem. Good luck with that approach, I said, setting my bag down. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. He wandered off, probably to bother someone else. I spent the next hour making personal copies of my performance reviews, commendations, and the contracts I'd personally negotiated. Nothing confidential, nothing that violated my employment agreement, just documentation of my contributions. Then I requested a meeting with Howard through Monica. He's got back-to-back calls until 11, she said, sympathy evident in her voice. But he can see you at 11:15. Perfect, I only need 5 minutes. Those 2 hours crawled by like cold honey. I cleaned out my desk drawer by drawer, packing personal items into a cardboard box I'd brought from home. Photos of my parents at the diner's 20th anniversary. The glass paperweight my team gave me when I made senior executive. A coffee mug that said, "Powered by caffeine and determination." Small things that made this cubicle mine. Angela stopped by, saw the box, and her face crumpled. "You're really doing this?" "I am." "What about the Morrison account? We're supposed to present next week." "You're going to present. I've added all my notes to the shared drive. You know that account as well as I do. You've been on every call, every meeting. You don't need me." She hugged me, right there in the middle of the office. "This place won't be the same without you." Maybe it'll be better. Maybe this is the wake-up call corporate needs about how they treat people. At 11:10, I picked up my resignation letter and headed to Howard's office. My heart hammered, but my hands were steady. Monica waved me in at 11:15 exactly. Howard's office screamed executive privilege. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than my annual salary. He sat behind a desk the size of a small car, typing on his laptop. "Evelyn, what can I do for you?" He didn't look up. I placed the envelope on his desk, white and crisp and final. "I'm resigning, effective 2 weeks from today per my contract." That got his attention. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "Resigning? Is this about Kevin's promotion?" "This is about knowing my worth and recognizing when it's not valued." He opened the envelope, pulling out the single-page letter. I'd kept it simple. "Dear Mr. Brennan, I hereby resign from my position as Senior Sales Executive at Brennan Solutions, effective 2 weeks from today's date. I appreciate the opportunities I've had here and wish the company success. Sincerely, Evelyn Cross." Howard read it twice, his expression morphing from confusion to disbelief to something that looked like panic. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and waxy under the fluorescent lights. He set the letter down with exaggerated care, like it might explode. "Evelyn, let's not be hasty. If this is about the Director of Sales Operations position, I'm happy to discuss your career path moving forward." "There's nothing to discuss. The decision's made." "You're upset about Kevin, I understand, but you need to see the bigger picture. He's family, and sometimes we have to make choices that support the whole organization." The whole organization. Translation. His sister had been hounding him to give her dropout son a chance, and Howard caved because family dinners are easier when everyone's happy. Never mind the dedicated employee who'd actually earned the position. "I do see the bigger picture," I said calmly. "I see that 7 years of exceptional performance matters less than a last name. I see that my expertise, my relationships, and my loyalty are worth less than nepotism. I see very clearly, which is why I'm leaving." Think about what you're throwing away. Your salary, your benefits, your reputation in this industry. You walk out now, it looks impulsive, unreliable. There it was, the veiled threat. Classic Howard, trying to manipulate through fear. My reputation is built on results, not staying in places that don't value me. I'll survive. He stood abruptly, his chair rolling backward and hitting the window with a thud. "You can't just leave. You have active accounts worth millions. The Anderson contract alone requires specialized knowledge. You think Angela or Jason can handle that? They'll need months to get up to speed, if they even can. Then you should have thought about succession planning before promoting someone with 0 sales experience to oversee the entire department. Kevin is smart and capable. He just needs time to learn." He asked Marcus what CRM stands for yesterday. He thinks sales is about YouTube techniques and charm. He's not ready, and deep down, you know it. Howard's face flushed red, his jaw clenching. "You're being incredibly selfish, Evelyn. This team depends on you, and you're abandoning them because you didn't get a promotion. That's childish." The accusation stung, mainly because part of me worried he was right. Was I abandoning my team? But then I thought about Angela, Jason, Marcus, all the talented people who watched this farce and realized their hard work didn't matter either. Maybe my leaving would inspire them to demand better too. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm setting a boundary. I've given this company 7 years of excellence. I've sacrificed personal time, relationships, and opportunities elsewhere. In return, I expected fair treatment. Since that's not available here, I'm finding it somewhere else. Fine, fine. Howard's voice rose to a shout. You want to throw away your career over pride, go ahead, but don't expect a glowing reference. Don't expect me to help when you're struggling to find another position. You're making a huge mistake, and you'll regret it. Monica appeared in the doorway, drawn by the yelling. Her eyes darted between us, concerned. I kept my voice level, refusing to match his volume. I've made mistakes before, Mr. Brennan. This isn't one of them. You'll have my formal transition notes by end of week. Good luck with everything. I turned and walked out, leaving him standing behind that massive desk, his face purple with rage and, unless I was mistaken, genuine fear. Because Howard Brennan was smart enough to know exactly what he was losing, even if he'd never admit it out loud. The walk back to my cubicle felt surreal. Colleagues watched from their desks, word having already spread through the office grapevine that something major was happening. I sat down, forwarded my transition document to Howard and copied Human Resources, then sent a group email to my team. Team, it's been the greatest honor of my career working with you. As of today, I've resigned from my position. Please know this decision reflects my personal career goals and in no way diminishes my respect for each of you. You're talented, dedicated professionals, and I'm excited to see where you go next. Stay in touch. Best, Evelyn. Within minutes, my inbox flooded with responses. Shock, sadness, anger at management, requests to meet for coffee and stay connected. Angela appeared at my cubicle again, eyes red. We should all walk out, she said fiercely. A mass resignation, see how they like that. Don't burn your bridges for me, Ang. You love this work and you're good at it. Just promise me you'll know your worth and won't settle for being overlooked. I promise, but this is wrong, Ev, so wrong. I finished packing my desk, said my goodbyes, and was out the door by noon. Walking into that bright Wednesday afternoon with a box of belongings and an uncertain future should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt like freedom. The first few days were strange. No alarm at 6 a.m., no commute through Chicago traffic, no endless emails demanding immediate attention. I slept in, went for long runs along the lakeshore, and started updating my resume. 7 years at one company meant I was rusty at job hunting, but I knew my worth. The numbers didn't lie. By Friday, 3 days after my resignation, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Evelyn Cross, a woman's voice, professional and warm. Speaking. This is Diane Foster from Summit Tech Partners. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Summit Tech Partners, one of the biggest tech solution firms in the Midwest, Brennan Solutions' main competitor. My pulse quickened. Not at all. How can I help you? I'll cut to the chase. I received an interesting call this morning from a mutual contact who mentioned you might be exploring new opportunities. We've been watching your career for some time, particularly that Anderson deal. That was masterful negotiation. Thank you, it was a team effort. I'm sure, but word in the industry is you were the driving force. Look, we're expanding our enterprise solutions division and need someone who can build and lead a team from the ground up. Based on your track record, I think you'd be perfect. Any interest in discussing this over lunch? I sank onto my couch processing this. 3 days. I'd been unemployed for 3 days and Summit Tech Partners was calling. Absolutely. When works for you? How's Monday? Say noon at Rivers Restaurant. We confirmed details and hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, a smile spreading across my face. The universe worked in mysterious ways. Monday's lunch meeting lasted 3 hours. Diane was sharp, direct, and refreshingly honest about Summit's goals and challenges. They wanted to build an enterprise division that could compete with the major players, and they needed someone who understood not just sales, but relationship cultivation and team development. Our research shows you have a 96% client retention rate, Diane said over coffee. That's almost unheard of in this industry. How do you do it? I treat clients like people, not numbers. I learn their actual needs, not just what they think they need. and I deliver on promises every single time. What about team management? You'd be building this division, which means hiring, training, setting culture. I thought about my team at Brennan Solutions, the people I'd mentored and supported. I believe in lifting people up, not controlling them. Give talented people clear goals, proper resources, and trust, then get out of their way. Micromanagement kills innovation. Diane smiled. I think we're going to work very well together. Let me be direct. I want to offer you the position of Vice President of Enterprise Solutions. You'd have full authority to build your team with a starting budget of $2 million for first-year operations. Salary is $180 base, plus performance bonuses that could push you past $250 depending on results. Equity options after year one. What do you think? $180,000. That was $60,000 more than I'd been making at Brennan Solutions. Vice President, my own division. Equity options. This wasn't just a new job, it was a career leap. I think I'd like to see the formal offer in writing, review the details, and pending that, I'm very interested. We shook hands. By Wednesday, I had a formal offer letter. By Friday, I'd signed it. Start date, 3 weeks out, giving me time to properly decompress and prepare for this new chapter. I didn't post about it on social media. Didn't send a mass announcement. But I did email Howard Brennan's HR department to inform them I was waiving my 2-week notice period since I'd accepted another position. Professional courtesy, nothing more. What I didn't know was that things at Brennan Solutions were unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. Angela called me 2 weeks after I left, her voice tight with stress. Evelyn, it's a disaster. Kevin tried to handle the Morrison account presentation alone, didn't use any of your notes, decided to wing it with his YouTube strategies. They pulled the contract, $3 million gone. Oh no, Ang, I'm sorry. It gets worse. He's been calling your old clients, introducing himself as their new point of contact. 4 of them have called asking to speak with you specifically, saying they're not comfortable with the transition. Howard's scrambling to contain it. What's he doing? He asked Jason and me to take over your accounts, but we're already maxed with our own. Plus, Kevin keeps overriding our decisions, saying he's the director and we need to follow his lead. Jason's updating his resume. I might be next. This was exactly what I'd feared. Not because I wanted Brennan Solutions to fail, but because I'd known Kevin wasn't ready and Howard was too proud to admit it. Keep me posted, okay? And if you need a reference or want to talk about opportunities, I'm here. 3 weeks into my new role at Summit Tech Partners, I was deep in hiring mode. I'd interviewed 15 candidates for my team and made 2 offers. Both accepted. Building something from scratch was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. But Diane gave me the autonomy she'd promised, and my ideas were not just heard but implemented. Then Angela's name popped up on my phone during lunch. Evelyn, do you have time to talk? Always, what's going on? I quit, handed in my resignation this morning. My heart sank. Angela was brilliant, one of the best account managers I'd ever worked with. What happened? Kevin happened. He lost another major account last week, the Hartley Group, because he promised features our product doesn't have. When the client found out, they threatened legal action for misrepresentation. Howard had to smooth it over personally, ate a huge discount to keep them from walking entirely. Then Kevin blamed me, said I should have backed him up in the meeting even though I told him beforehand that he was promising impossible things. That's ridiculous. It gets better. Howard called me into his office, suggested I wasn't being a team player by contradicting Kevin, said I needed to show more respect for leadership. I told him respect is earned, not demanded, and that Kevin has no business leading anyone when he doesn't know the product or the industry. Howard said if I couldn't adjust my attitude, maybe I wasn't a good fit anymore. So I made the choice easy for him. Good for you, seriously, Ang, good for you. Thanks, I know you're probably busy with your new role, but I wanted to ask if Summit Tech might have any openings. I've been following your posts about the team you're building. I smiled. This was the call I'd been hoping for. As a matter of fact, I need a senior account manager who can hit the ground running, someone I trust, who knows how to build client relationships and mentor junior staff. Interested?" She laughed, the sound bright with relief. "Are you kidding? Yes, absolutely yes. Send me your resume as a formality, but consider this your unofficial offer. I'll loop in Diane and HR today." Angela came on board 2 weeks later. Then Jason. Then 2 others from my old Brennan Solutions team. By the end of my second month at Summit Tech Partners, I'd built a division staffed with people I knew, trusted, and respected. People who shared my values about integrity and client service. We landed our first major contract in month 3. A systems integration deal with a national retailer worth $5 million over 2 years. I sent the team celebration email, copied Diane, and allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. This was what success felt like, when it wasn't tainted by politics or nepotism. Meanwhile, reports from Brennan Solutions painted a grim picture. Kevin had lasted 4 months before Howard quietly moved him to a special projects role, which everyone knew was code for, "We don't know what to do with him." The sales division was hemorrhaging clients and talent. Revenue projections were down 40% year over year. The company had brought in an outside consultant to assess what went wrong. I heard this through industry connections, the kind of gossip that circulates when a company stumbles. Part of me felt vindicated. A larger part just felt sad. Brennan Solutions had been a good place once, full of talented people doing meaningful work. Howard's decision to prioritize family over merit hadn't just cost him 1 employee. It had triggered a cascade that destabilized the entire operation. 6 months after I resigned, I was at an industry conference in Boston. Summit Tech Partners had sponsored my attendance to network and explore potential partnerships. I was in the hotel bar after a long day of panels, nursing a glass of wine, when someone slid into the seat beside me. Howard Brennan. He looked older, smaller somehow. The confidence that used to radiate from him had dimmed. His suit was still expensive, but it hung on him differently, like he'd lost weight from stress. "Evelyn, thought that was you." "Howard, this is a surprise." "Can I buy you a drink? I promise I'm not here to yell or make threats." I studied him, trying to gauge sincerity. "Sure, white wine." He ordered 2 glasses, and we sat in awkward silence until they arrived. Finally, he spoke. "I owe you an apology. A real one, not the corporate non-apology kind. I made a terrible decision promoting Kevin, and I compounded it by dismissing your concerns and trying to bully you into staying. You deserved better, and I'm sorry." The apology caught me off guard. Howard Brennan didn't do humble. "Thank you for saying that. For what it's worth, you leaving was the best thing that happened to you and probably the worst thing that happened to us. I've spent 6 months doing damage control, trying to rebuild what we lost. It's humbling, realizing that one decision can have such massive ripple effects." "What about Kevin's?" "He's back in school, actually. Got accepted to a state university, studying hospitality management. Turns out he's much better with people in a service context than a sales one. He's happier, and honestly, so am I. The pressure to make it work was killing both of us. I'm glad he found his fit." Howard took a long sip of wine. "I heard you're doing incredible work at Summit. Vice President, your own division. That should have been with us. I let family politics override good business sense, and it cost me the best executive I've ever worked with." There was nothing to say to that. He was right, and we both knew it. "I don't expect forgiveness or anything from you," he continued. "But I wanted you to know that I learned from this. I'm implementing new policies at Brennan Solutions. Transparent promotion criteria, external review for senior positions, no more nepotism. I can't undo what happened, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again." "That's good, Howard, really. Those changes will help." We talked for another hour, the conversation surprisingly comfortable. He asked about my work at Summit, seemed genuinely interested in my team-building approach. I asked about the people still at Brennan Solutions, heard that morale was slowly improving under new leadership. When we parted ways, he shook my hand firmly. "You're going to do amazing things, Evelyn. Thanks for taking the time to talk." "Good luck with everything, Howard." Walking back to my room, I felt a chapter close. The anger I'd carried, the resentment about being overlooked and undervalued had dissipated. Not because Howard apologized, though that helped, but because I'd proven to myself that I didn't need his validation. I'd built something better on my own terms. A year after leaving Brennan Solutions, my division at Summit Tech Partners was exceeding every projection. We'd landed 12 major contracts, built a team of 23, and established a reputation for integrity and results. Diane had promoted me to Senior Vice President, adding 2 more divisions under my oversight. My equity options were worth serious money, and industry publications had started featuring my approach to client relations and team development. More importantly, I loved my work. Every morning felt purposeful. The people I worked with respected and challenged me. We celebrated wins together and problem-solved setbacks as a team. This was what a healthy workplace looked like, and experiencing it made me realize just how toxic things had been at Brennan Solutions, even before the Kevin situation. Angela had become my right hand, managing the enterprise accounts with the same dedication she'd shown before. Jason led our technical solutions team. The others I'd brought over from Brennan Solutions had flourished too, freed from the politics and nepotism that had stifled their growth. We were in a strategy meeting one Thursday when my assistant, Kelly, knocked on the conference room door. "Evelyn, sorry to interrupt, but you have a call. The person says it's urgent and you'll want to take it." I excused myself and picked up in my office. "This is Evelyn Cross." "Miss Cross, my name is Timothy Walsh. I'm the CEO of Brennan Solutions." My eyebrows rose. Timothy Walsh had founded the company 30 years ago, then stepped back to chairman of the board, leaving day-to-day operations to Howard. If the CEO was calling me personally, something significant was happening. "Mr. Walsh, this is unexpected. How can I help you?" "I'll be direct because I respect your time. The board has decided to make leadership changes at Brennan Solutions. Howard Brennan is transitioning to an advisory role, and we're searching for a new chief sales officer. Your name came up immediately and unanimously. I'd like to discuss bringing you back in this capacity." Chief sales officer. That was C-suite, reporting directly to the CEO, overseeing all revenue operations. It was the kind of position people spent entire careers working toward. "That's flattering, Mr. Walsh, but I'm very happy at Summit Tech Partners." "I understand, and your success there speaks for itself. But consider this. You know Brennan Solutions inside and out. You have relationships with former clients who have expressed interest in working with you again. And frankly, you have the leadership skills and integrity we need to rebuild our culture. We're prepared to offer significant compensation. $270 base, full equity package, executive benefits, and complete authority over sales operations. You'd have a seat on the executive leadership team and a direct voice in company strategy. $270,000. Complete authority. A chance to rebuild something I'd once cared about deeply, but on my own terms this time. "Mr. Walsh, I appreciate the offer, but I need to be honest. I left Brennan Solutions because the culture was broken. Nepotism over merit, politics over performance. If I'm going to consider this, I need assurance that's changed fundamentally." "That's exactly why we need you. The board recognizes that Howard's management style created the problems you're describing. We're committed to transparency, merit-based advancement, and accountability at all levels. We want you to help build that culture." "Can I think about this, discuss it with my current leadership, and give it proper consideration?" "Absolutely, take a week. But Evelyn, I hope you'll seriously consider it. You belong in the C-suite, and Brennan Solutions should have been where you got there first." I hung up and sat in my office, staring at Lake Michigan through my window. This was validation on a level I'd never expected. The company that had overlooked me now wanted me as chief sales officer. The board had removed Howard and was offering me everything I'd worked for and more. But did I want it? I called Diane, explained the situation, and waited for her response. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Evelyn, I'm not going to lie and say losing you wouldn't hurt. It would devastate me and this company. But I'm also not going to stand in the way of an incredible opportunity. If Brennan Solutions is offering you a C-suite role, you've earned the right to consider it seriously." "What would you do?" That's not my call, but I'll say this, you've built something special here. People who trust you, culture you've shaped, results you're proud of. Brennan Solutions is offering money and a title, which matters, but make sure you're not just chasing validation for what they denied you before. Make sure it's what you actually want. Her words hit home. Was I tempted by the Brennan Solutions offer because it was genuinely the right move, or because it felt like winning? Because it proved that walking away had been the right choice. I spent the weekend thinking, making lists of pros and cons, talking it through with trusted friends. By Monday, I had my answer. I called Timothy Walsh. Mr. Walsh, I've given your offer serious thought, and I'm honored by the confidence you and the board have shown in me. But I'm going to decline. I'm building something at Summit Tech Partners that aligns with my values and vision. I have autonomy, support, and a team I believe in. Brennan Solutions is a great company, but it's not my company anymore. He was disappointed but gracious. I understand, though I wish you'd reconsider. If you ever change your mind, the door is open. I appreciate that. And Mr. Walsh, for what it's worth, I think the changes you're making will help Brennan Solutions become what it should be. I'm rooting for your success. Turning down that offer was one of the hardest and best decisions I've made, because it wasn't about the money or the title or proving anything to Howard Brennan. It was about choosing the path that made me happy, not the one that looked most impressive on paper. 2 years later, Summit Tech Partners went public. My equity package was suddenly worth several $1,000,000. My division had grown to 70 employees and accounted for 40% of company revenue. I'd been promoted to executive vice president and had a standing invitation to join the board of directors. More than the financial success or the titles, though, I was proud of the culture we'd built. People wanted to work for my division because they knew they'd be valued, challenged, and treated fairly. We had a 94% retention rate, virtually unheard of in the industry. When people did leave, it was for opportunities we celebrated with them, not because they were burnt out or undervalued. I still saw Howard occasionally at industry events. We were cordial, even friendly. He genuinely changed Brennan Solutions' culture, implementing the policies he'd mentioned and creating real pathways for advancement based on merit. The company had stabilized and was growing again, which I was glad to see. But I never regretted walking away that Wednesday afternoon, resignation letter in hand, refusing to accept being overlooked. That decision changed my life's trajectory in ways I couldn't have imagined. It taught me that knowing your worth isn't arrogant, it's essential. That sometimes the biggest risk is staying in a situation that doesn't value you. That walking away from what's comfortable can lead to what's extraordinary. The speaking invitations started arriving during my 3rd year at Summit Tech Partners. First, it was a local women in business luncheon, then a panel at a tech conference, then keynote requests from organizations across the country. They wanted to hear about building teams, navigating workplace politics, and knowing when to walk away from toxic environments. I accepted selectively, choosing events that aligned with my values and allowed me to share lessons that might help others avoid the mistakes I'd made or the injustices I'd experienced. Standing on stages, sharing my story about Howard and Kevin and that resignation letter, I watched audience members nod in recognition. They'd been there too, overlooked and undervalued, wondering if standing up for themselves was worth the risk. After one particularly well-received keynote in Seattle, a young woman approached me during the reception. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she clutched a business card in trembling hands. "Miss Cross, I'm Olivia. I work for a consulting firm in Portland, and your story could have been mine. I've been there 5 years, consistently top performer, and last month they promoted someone from outside the company to the role I'd been promised. He's the CEO's former college roommate." My chest tightened with familiar anger on her behalf. "I'm sorry, Olivia, that's incredibly unfair. I've been too scared to leave. What if I can't find something better? What if they're right and I'm not ready? But hearing you tonight made me realize I'm making excuses because I'm afraid." Fear is natural. Fear means you care about your future, but don't let fear keep you in a place that doesn't value you. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I'm updating my resume tonight. Thank you for sharing your story. It gave me courage." Conversations like that became my fuel. Every person who approached me with their own tale of workplace injustice, every email from someone who'd found the strength to demand better treatment, reminded me why I'd walked away from Brennan Solutions. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about changing the narrative that workers should be grateful for any job, any treatment, any scraps of recognition their employers deign to offer. The industry publications that had once ignored me now requested interviews regularly. Forbes ran a feature titled, "How Evelyn Cross Built a Tech Empire on the Foundation of Fairness." Fast Company included me in their Most Innovative Leaders issue. The Harvard Business Review published my article on sustainable team building and client retention. Each piece of recognition felt surreal, not because I didn't believe I deserved it, but because it starkly contrasted with how invisible I'd felt at Brennan Solutions. 7 years of excellence had earned me nothing there. 3 years of the same excellence at Summit Tech Partners, in an environment that valued merit over politics, had made me a respected voice in the industry. My parents came to one of my speaking events in Chicago, sitting in the front row of a packed auditorium. Watching them watch me, their faces glowing with pride, brought tears to my eyes mid-presentation. After the standing ovation, my mother hugged me tightly in the lobby. "We always knew you were special, sweetheart. We're so proud of the woman you've become. You taught me everything that matters, Mom. Hard work, integrity, treating people with dignity. That's all you and Dad." My father, never much for emotional displays, simply squeezed my shoulder. "You did this yourself, Evelyn. You knew your worth and didn't settle. That takes courage." The mentorship program I launched in my 4th year at Summit Tech Partners became one of my proudest achievements. We partnered with local universities and community organizations to identify talented individuals from underrepresented backgrounds and provide them with real-world experience, training, and pathways into tech careers. Angela helped me design the curriculum, drawing from our own experiences navigating corporate environments. We taught not just technical skills, but how to negotiate salaries, recognize toxic workplace cultures, build professional networks, and advocate for yourself without apology. Our first cohort of 12 mentees graduated after 6 months. 8 received job offers from Summit Tech Partners. 3 started their own ventures with seed funding from our Innovation Grant program. 1, a brilliant young man named Tyler who'd grown up in foster care, joined my division and within 2 years became one of our top account executives. Watching Tyler close his first major deal, seeing his face light up with pride and accomplishment, reminded me why all the struggle had been worth it. He'd told me once during our mentorship sessions that he'd almost given up on corporate careers, convinced they were only for people with connections and privilege. Our program had shown him that merit and hard work could still matter, if you found the right environment. The contrast between my current life and my final year at Brennan Solutions sometimes felt almost dreamlike. I'd gone from fighting for scraps of recognition to having more opportunities than I could possibly accept, from being overlooked for promotions to being courted by companies across the industry, from feeling powerless to shaping policy and culture that would impact hundreds of employees. And it had all started with a single decision to know my worth and walk away when it wasn't valued. During a quarterly leadership retreat, Diane pulled me aside during a break between sessions. We stood on the terrace of the mountain resort, looking out over pine forests stretching to the horizon. "You know what I appreciate most about you, Evelyn," she said, her tone reflective. "What's that?" "You never forgot where you came from. You could have become exactly what Howard was at Brennan Solutions, focused on power, willing to overlook fairness for convenience, building a culture that serves you instead of everyone. But you didn't. You built something better because you remembered what it felt like to be undervalued." Her words settled over me like a warm blanket. My parents taught me that how you treat people when you have power says everything about your character. I watched Howard choose his comfort over fairness, and I promised myself I'd never make that mistake. Well, it's working. Your division has the highest satisfaction scores in the company, the best retention, and the strongest results. Turns out treating people well is also good business. Revolutionary concept, I said with a smile. That evening, I stood in front of the entire leadership team and presented our 5-year strategic plan. The room was full of people I respected, working for a company I believed in, pursuing goals that excited me. My voice was confident, my data was solid, and when I finished, the applause was genuine. This was what I'd been working toward my entire career. Not just success, but meaningful success. Not just recognition, but respect. Not just a job, but a calling. Howard Brennan's choice to promote Kevin had seemed like the end of my world that Tuesday morning in the conference room. In reality, it had been the beginning of something far better. The catalyst that forced me to stop waiting for others to recognize my value and start demanding it myself. The professionals who reach out now, asking for advice about their own workplace struggles, always get the same core message. Document your value, know your worth, and never be afraid to walk away from people who don't recognize it. Loyalty matters, but it has to flow both ways. When it doesn't, you're not abandoning ship, you're choosing yourself. And that's not selfish, that's survival. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt overlooked or undervalued in your workplace, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We're building a community of professionals who believe that hard work deserves recognition and that standing up for yourself is always the right choice. Every story shared here reminds someone else that they're not alone and that better opportunities exist when you're brave enough to pursue them. Join the journey toward 8,000 subscribers, each one someone who knows that respect at work isn't optional. It's essential. Your worth isn't determined by people who can't see it. It's determined by you, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your head high and build something better. That's exactly what happened when I handed Howard Brennan my resignation. His face went pale, he started yelling, and I walked out anyway. Best decision I ever made.